Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating, almost thrilling biotech story that sits right at the intersection of traditional pharmaceutical giants and cutting-edge Silicon Valley tech. We're going to explore what happens when Big Pharma's trash literally becomes Silicon Valley's treasure. We'll be looking at how Novo Nordisk, yeah, the company you definitely know for its massive weight loss drugs, handed over a highly promising Parkinson's cell therapy to an AI-driven startup backed by Mark Zuckerberg. It is an absolutely incredible look at resource allocation, artificial intelligence, and basically the entire future of medicine. Okay, let's dive into this with part 1, the promise of STEM-PD and the human stakes involved. Before we get completely lost in the corporate maneuvering and the flashy AI algorithms, we have to ground our story in the very real human element. 10 million. Seriously, just let that massive number sink in for a second. That represents the estimated number of people worldwide currently affected by Parkinson's disease. The stakes here are incredibly high. For decades, multiple research groups have been desperately pursuing treatments that can actually replace the specific cells in the brain that this disease destroys. We aren't just talking about, managing symptoms anymore. The holy grail here is actual functional replacement. And that brings us to the specific therapy at the center of our whole story today. So what exactly is STEM-PD? Well, this is the experimental therapy Novo Nordisk was working so hard to develop. It's an allogeneic stem cell-derived treatment. Basically, that just means the cells come from a donor rather than the patient themselves. The ultimate goal here is to physically replace the dopamine-producing nerve cells that a Parkinson's patient loses over time. It's bold, it's complex, and it's an incredibly delicate scientific endeavor. And here's the thing. Novo Nordisk had successfully taken this treatment through preclinical stages and right into early clinical development. It was well-characterized and it was looking highly promising. So that leads us right into part 2, the Ozempic effect and Novo Nordisk's strategic pivot. Which brings us to a massive contradiction. If STEM-PD was so well characterized and held so much promise for 10 million people, why on earth did Novo Nordisk completely shut down its cell therapy unit last October? Well, the answer comes down to Wegovy and Ozempic. Novo Nordisk found itself in a really unique and, frankly, highly lucrative predicament. The demand for their GLP-1 weight loss and diabetes drugs was skyrocketing to unprecedented levels. Demand was continuously outpacing supply. In business, when you have a blockbuster product flying off the shelves faster than you can even make it, you have to ruthlessly prioritize your resources. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer market dominance illustrated by that 65% slice. Last week, Novo reported that Wegovy alone captured 65% of all new U.S. prescriptions in its category. That is huge. That kind of insatiable demand drove a staggering 22% rise in obesity care sales on a constant currency basis for the company. When a single product line commands that much of the market, it demands total corporate focus and unparalleled logistical support. This dynamic perfectly illustrates the really tough strategic choice Novo Nordisk faced. On one side, you have GLP-1 and obesity drugs, an active commercial line with massive, immediate, and hungry global demand. On the other side, you have cell therapies like STEM-PD. These are in early-stage research. They are incredibly complex, and crucially, they are highly resource-intensive to produce. Novo Nordisk's cell therapy unit wasn't a commercial powerhouse yet. It was still a research operation. So by shutting it down, they were able to free up vital engineering and manufacturing capacity to just produce more GLP-1s. Actually, think of it like this. They didn't abandon STEM-PD because the science was bad. They abandoned it because they literally needed the factory space and the engineering brainpower for Wegovy. Which brings us to part 3. Enter Cellular Intelligence and the Silicon Valley revival. And boom, this is where our story takes a sharp pivot. STEM-PD was shelved, essentially becoming a loose end from Novo's October restructuring. But, as you'll see, in the biotech world, one company's discarded early-stage research can totally become another company's foundational asset. Enter Cellular Intelligence. They're an AI biotech startup, and they are clearly not lacking in financial muscle. They have raised more than $60 million to date, backed by major Silicon Valley players like Hosla Ventures and the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. This is actually part of a much larger, highly intentional investment pattern we've seen lately, where substantial philanthropic and venture capital is being committed specifically toward AI-driven biology. They're betting big, and I mean really big, that artificial intelligence is the key to unlocking the next generation of medical breakthroughs. So the crucial point is how this deal actually benefits both parties. It's a classic win-win. We don't know the exact upfront financial terms, but Novo Nordisk isn't just handing this over for free. They are taking an equity stake in Cellular Intelligence.
Furthermore, Novo is in line for milestone payments and future royalties if STEM PD is successful down the road. It's a highly logical strategic maneuver. It neatly ties up a loose end from the restructuring and entirely offloads the current operational burden. But they still keep themselves in the game for a massive financial upside if the startup's AI approach actually works out. And finally, Part 4, the AI biology bet, and solving the cell therapy bottleneck.
So, how exactly does a tech startup plan to succeed where a massive, established pharmaceutical company decided to walk away? Well, for Cellular Intelligence, acquiring STEM PD gives them the ultimate anchor asset. When you are an AI platform pitching to investors, you need real-world data and real-world biology to prove your algorithms actually work. Because of Novo Nordisk's prior significant investments, STEM PD is already well characterized. It has successfully navigated preclinical stages and early clinical stages. Cellular Intelligence doesn't have to start from scratch in a petri dish. They get to apply their artificial intelligence to a mature, in-development therapy right out of the gate. Let's move to and see how this builds into their core business strategy. Cellular Intelligence claims their proprietary AI platform is built entirely around cost and speed, and they intend to apply it in 3 distinct steps to solve these traditional manufacturing bottlenecks. Step 1 is to accelerate the clinical program. This means using AI to tackle incredibly complex tasks like dose-finding work, building directly on the data from Novo's earlier trials. Step 2 is to scale manufacturing. Growing and maintaining living cell therapies at an industrial scale is notoriously difficult and unpredictable. And step 3 is to bring down those production costs. Because at the end of the day, if you can't make it affordably, you just can't reach the millions of patients who desperately need it. Their entire bet boils down to this bold central thesis. AI-assisted manufacturing and dose selection can make a treatment of this kind commercially viable on a timeline conventional cell therapy programs have not been able to match. That is the grand bet. Conventional pharma kind of hit a wall with the timelines and resources required for cell therapy, especially when weighing against easier commercial wins. Cellular Intelligence is betting that AI is the exact missing ingredient needed to solve those stubborn manufacturing and dose selection bottlenecks once and for all. Which leaves us with a really pivotal question to ponder. Can AI finally make cell therapies commercially viable? We've seen big pharma pivot hard to immediate commercial needs, leaving a vacuum that Silicon Valley money and artificial intelligence are now rushing in to fill. While we don't have a disclosed timeline for the next clinical milestone for STEM PD just yet, this deal represents a massive shift in how complex diseases might be treated in the future, and it's a trend we should absolutely all be paying close attention to. It proves that the intersection of resource allocation and next-generation tech has real, tangible human impacts. Thank you so much for walking through this explainer with me. Keep analyzing the data, keep asking those hard questions, and keep learning. Catch you next time.